Thank you. Just wait till everyone gets their seat and we'll get underway. Remember, we are being live streamed today. That text number is 0401 672 372. Thank you for your questions. And now to our fabulous speaker, Dr. Dinesh Palapana. And he's the first quadriplegic medical intern in Queensland and the second person to graduate medical school in Australia, the result of a catastrophic vehicle accident that caused a cervical spinal cord injury. Now, despite that, Dinesh graduated with the Clinical Subdean's Prize for Clinical Excellence. What kind of barriers has he faced? And why are WES the most powerful three letters imaginable? Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to Dr. Dinesh Palapana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words today. I fought a fair bit of traffic to get up here from Gold Coast. It's about 3 hours this morning. Let me see if this clicker works. Nope. There we go. So my journey actually started right here in QUT. Before I went to medical school, I finished a degree in law at QUT. This clicker's a bit tricky. So I'm not really sure what my motivations were for going into law, but figured I'd be able to take part in, play a part in justice and fairness and all that kind of thing. But, I was 17 and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had so many ideas in my head about what was cool and what was not, but I don't think I really found my passion or where I was supposed to be at that time. And I went through law school and a bit of time went by. And I went through this period where I really struggled with depression and anxiety and panic attacks, and it got so bad to a point where I got agoraphobia. So that means I was too afraid to go outside the house. And I spent weeks inside the house at one point, and that was probably one of the darkest experiences of my life, because you're sort of a prisoner in your mind. But I don't actually regret it, because that experience really broke me down a bit and helped me find what was important to me. So I did a lot of soul searching during that time, and I realized, I probably feel this way because I'm not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And I thought about what I should do. And then I thought about what was important to me. And I thought, really, what's most important to me in this world are people. If I can make a difference in people's lives, if I can just help one person, I would have thought an entire lifetime would be worth it. So I thought about it a bit more and a bit more. I thought, how can I do this? And that's how I ended up thinking about medicine. I thought, wow, this would be really good. I get to help people every day. It's challenging. It's interesting. And the more I thought about it, the more I really, really got excited about it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do medicine. That's it. So I finished law school. I sat the entrance exam for medical school, and I had so much energy and passion for getting there. I got into medical school with a scholarship, and from day one, I knew that's where I was supposed to be. I was just happy. Every day was really bright. I used to wake up and think, I have the best life. I have found what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is it. Things couldn't get any better. A couple of years went by. As I said, life was really good. But things changed for me very quickly. So halfway through medical school, I just started year 3 of 4. I was visiting my parents in Brisbane, and I was driving back on the Gateway. There's no traffic that night, but it was quite wet, and it was dark, and there were roadworks going on in the Gateway at the time. And it was funny because I was not going to take the Gateway that night. I was going to leave at a different time. I was going to stop by a friend's house, which I missed the turn off. So all these different combination of things put me at this one place and one time when my car aquaplaned. I lost control of it, and it felt like I was driving it on butter. And it was super scary at the time. Adrenaline kicked in. I was trying to get control of the car again. But no, it just kept going and going and going. And it went up this embankment, came back down, and the nose hit the tarmac, and then it started rolling head to tail. I could hear all the metal just crumbling, glass shattering. The most violent noises I ever heard. At that point, I was like, well, there's nothing more I can do now. I'm just going to think about this like a roller coaster and enjoy the ride. So that's what I did. So it rolled and rolled and rolled, and here I am on my roller coaster. Then it finally landed. It felt like it went on forever. When it landed, the reality of what just happened hit me because I tried to get out of the car. My fingers weren't obeying my commands, and I couldn't move. And then I touched my legs. I think that's like the classic story for everyone. Like, I touched my legs and couldn't feel them. Well, neither could I. Just numb. I was wearing a white t-shirt that day. I looked down and it was just soaked in blood. And the car was just a complete mess. So a guy pulled over and called the ambulance. Ambulance turned up, and in the ambulance, there happened to be this doctor that had given me a lecture just a couple of weeks ago. It's a funny thing, actually. So this guy is a emergency physician, and he's the director of Queensland Ambulance at the moment, the medical director. When he gave us that lecture a few weeks before the incident, I remember thinking, he was showing all these photos of him jumping out of helicopters and cracking people's chests open and doing all these heroic things. And I looked at that and thought, I think that's really what I want to do in medicine, emergency. Anyway, so I looked up. Here he was in the car. And I said, hey, I know you. He's like, you gave me a talk a few weeks ago. And we connected for a minute, and then I just started, screaming and being upset again. So that was the start of me seeing things from the other side. So 8 months of being in hospital, from ICU, from surgery, from rehab. I got to see all aspects of being a patient. And some of it was really confronting because you completely lose control of yourself when you're a patient. Every morning the doctors do their ward rounds and talk about you, walk off. You don't get to ask questions sometimes. And you just feel like you're, a bed number. It was really hard. And you feel like you don't have control of things in your life either. People try to make decisions for you. People say this is what you should be doing. All these things were going on around. And outside of the health problems, financially there were problems. My family was falling apart. There were so many things that were going on around me. It was a pretty rough time. But some of those lessons that I learned, when I see a patient at the bedside today, and when there's a difficult interaction, we get all sorts of patients, and some of them are aggressive, some of them are scared, some of them are... And I often take a step back and think about how I felt during that time, and I think it really has helped me improve my interactions with people as a doctor. Anyway, during that time, I never gave up the idea of wanting to be a doctor. So I was talking to a lot of people about how I'd get back to medical school, I really, really wanted to do it. And I remember one conversation that my mum told me about that she had, again, with a different emergency doctor. He said that he won't be able to be a doctor. He won't be able to, finish his clinical rotations. He won't be able to examine a patient. How will he do this? How will he do that? He should just practice law and forget about it. And a lot of other people told me that too. And some of my friends, I think they told me that out of love. They said, it's a really hard road. Why do you want to take that? You can go back to the law, you can practice law, you'll make money, you'll be comfortable, and you don't have to do this. It's an unknown. And it was difficult for myself as well. Even though I really wanted to do it, I had so many questions. I was really scared within myself. I was a pretty proud guy, kind of vain, like to dress well and all that stuff. So I really was scared about how the world would see me now from a wheelchair. I was, completely different. My body had changed. So I had a lot of fears within myself. So recently I was talking to one of my mentors, and they were asking me, what was the turning point? You went through all this stuff. And what was actually the turning point? What was the one thing that you could remember? And after chatting to the bit, he said, it sounds like it's when yes was said. And when we broke it down a bit more, I think there were 3 yeses that were really key. So the first yes was actually me. And I think, for anyone with a disability or anyone with a challenge or, anyone, even a normal person, the first thing is to say yes to yourself. Yes, I want to do it. Yes, I'm committed to this. And I don't give a damn what anyone else says. I'm just going to go for it. And I think you can achieve some outrageous things if you just... Sorry. My mum always comes to the rescue when these things happen, so... Thank you. Yeah. It's not the first time that's happened. So yeah, I think if you just say yes and commit to an idea, you can do some crazy stuff. The second yes had to come from my educators. So education is a really important thing in disability. People still face a lot of challenges in becoming educated. It's not an equal playing field, especially in medicine. Fortunately, my medical school was quite open to the idea. My dean, a really nice guy, decided that it was worth a shot. But behind closed doors, they told me that there were a lot of opposition to having me back in the medical school, and there were a lot of barriers that had to be broken. And when I graduated, he himself said, when we started this journey, I wasn't confident that we'd be able to finish it. But I'm glad we took the chance. And after I got that yes from the medical school, I started climbing the mountain. So I had to finish med school. Interestingly enough, the conversation around disability in medical education heated up about a year after I came back. And the medical deans of Australia and New Zealand, so they're a body of the deans that get together and create policy for medical education. They came together and created this document that sought to exclude people with a range of disabilities from medical education. So they said things like, you have to have a certain level of vision, you have to have no auditory impairments, no sensory impairments, no physical impairments. You have to be able to pick up social cues. You have to be able to do a full work week, all this kind of stuff. And it also said, I was privy to the email when they were drafting this document. And one of the authors said, this will afford us some legal protection if we want to exclude someone with a disability already studying medicine or want to study medicine. So, it was really heartbreaking, actually. Nonetheless, I passed all my exams, and I like to think that I broke expectations. There was a particular clinical supervisor who had a lot of objections to me coming on. He said, would patients take you seriously? Would you be able to, do everything that you need to be able to do? By the end of my time with him, he said that I was the best medical student he ever had. So, I like to think that we climbed the mountain and climbed it really well. And finally, I graduated from med school. That was a really special day for us. And as Madonna said, I ended up getting the Clinical Sub-Dean's Prize for Clinical Excellence. And I got another couple of awards. I spent some time at Harvard University doing a term in radiology, and everything went really, really well. Nonetheless, it wasn't really over. The battle kind of just started in a way. So then came the time where I had to get a job. So in Australia, all domestic medical graduates are guaranteed a job. We basically put our preferences down and where I want to be. So you put, most people like to stay in Brisbane or Southeast Queensland. This year, Mount Isa got 0 preferences, unfortunately. So I put my preferences in. A few weeks later, I get an email saying your application's been taken out to be considered separately. So all my friends got their jobs, and I was sitting around without a job. So months and months and months went by, and then we were supposed to start work in January 12th, I think it was. December came around, and I was still sitting around jobless. Then end of December, I called up and said, what's happening? Will I be working? And they said, no, it's very unlikely that you'll be starting work with your peers this year. And by then, it was too late for me to go to another state. So some of the other states said, like ACT, Victoria, they said, it doesn't matter if you have a disability, we just treat you like everyone else. But here, I had a lot of challenges with that. Fortunately, the community, some of my supervisors, in the media, provided some support. And the Friday, before the Monday we were supposed to start work, I was having a beer with a friend and saying, what the hell am I supposed to do this year? I would have called about 2:45 p.m. saying, would you like to start work on Monday? I said, yes, I definitely would. So that was the third yes. The employer had to say yes. And I've been working, this is my second year now. I started in January last year. And everything has been going tremendously well. So despite all these worries that everyone had, I became the first quadriplegic intern in Queensland's history, which was, feels like a nice step. And last year, I was nominated as one of the interns of the year at Gold Coast Health. And that's, I put this up because I've had some questions about whether I've achieved these things based on merit. Last year, I was tutoring a medical student with their exams. They were struggling to pass. They'd failed over and over again, and they said, can you please help me out? I really need to pass this year, or they're going to kick me out of med school. And I sat down with them and gave them some help. And by the end of it, she said to me, I don't understand why I'm not passing. They let you pass medical school. I didn't know what to say. I was kind of speechless. So I left her alone, and she failed again. But apparently after she failed, she went to the medical school and kicked up a huge fuss and said, you let this guy pass, and you haven't let me pass. So I put this up because, I like to think that I achieve these things by working hard and based on my merit. And I think that's what anyone with a physical challenge or disability want. They want, particularly special treatment. They just want to be treated based on their merit and not mistreated based on their disability. That's one of the biggest things. There are so many people out there that achieve huge things and that can achieve huge things, but they're just treated differently. When you hear quadriplegic doctor, the first thing that comes to people's minds sometimes are questions and doubts. But I like to think that we're starting to break those barriers. So my message really is that, employers, educators, and people just need to start saying yes. Yes, there'll be challenges, but you can figure that out. But the first step really is we need people to start taking some chances. We need people to start believing that it's possible and figure out the problems later. Just say yes. And I think those 3 letters, that single word, can change the world. We can really make this world, the workplace, more inclusive just by taking a chance. So my message today really, just say yes and figure it out later. All right.
Dinesh, thank you. You've given us a story that we can't help all but learn from. You say the importance of saying yes, and you said yes, but your educators and your employers also had to say yes, didn't they? You say you're a better doctor now because of what you went through. Is there a way, apart from that obvious of giving it a go, is there a way that we could do this across the health services without people having that lived experience? Is there some other way we can change the way people think or to influence them to say yes more?
I think, it's actually just a matter of attitude. I have another quick story.
Yeah, please.
I'm at this point in my career where I have to plan on what specialty I'm going to do. The last few months I've been having some conversations, and since I went through medical school, after the accident, I thought I had to rethink what I want to do, right? And I thought radiology would be a good option. It's one of the least physical specialties. You can be a diagnostic radiologist where you pretty much interpret images on a computer. And when I applied for a term in radiology at Gold Coast, the director of radiology said, no, it's not going to work. We don't think you're able to do the job. It's just not going to happen. I can't give you reasons why. I can just say that it's not going to work. After I told that to my bosses in the emergency department, they said, well, with some colourful language, they said, what the hell do they think they do that we don't do here? Because I work in the emergency most of the time. And they said, we're happy to look at training you up in emergency medicine. So it's funny, isn't it? Because emergency is one of the most physical specialties that you can get into. But they're willing to look at ways to make it happen. So it's a matter of attitude, and I think it comes from the top down. So, I'm not sure how to change those attitudes, but I think if the leadership takes steps, I think it makes a huge difference.
So many times we've heard today it starts at the top, the leadership and the culture set by the boss. You said when you were thinking about medical school, if I could help one person, I think my life would be worth it. I just wonder where that tally sits now. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to Brent.
Thank you.
And now to Robert Setter, the Public Sector Service Commission's Chief Executive, who I know has a passion for creating the best and most inclusive work environments we can. So how does he see us disabling those barriers? Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Setter.
It's just not fair. You've had a morning of great inspirational speakers and now you've got the boring old bureaucrats. So I'll do the best I can to close it out. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land in which we gather, elders past, present and emerging, and look to them, I guess, to be ever more inclusive in our work and in our lives. It's a great opportunity to be here to share my thoughts on the importance of inclusive and diverse workplaces, in particular in the area of disability, and to outline what Queensland's largest workplace, that's the Queensland public sector, has committed to do to break down the barriers. You heard earlier on from Mark and Daniel talk about the drivers and reasons for inclusive and diverse workplaces, and of course the business case is very strong and talks to its own value, I guess, in terms of doing that. And research by McKinsey in 2017 also talked about the global relevance of diversity and the link between diversity and organisational performance. Diversity inclusion, of course, therefore has political, social and economic importance and imperatives for Queensland. The Queensland public sector, therefore, has agreed, the leadership board, that's all the directors, general and commissioners, have agreed to set targets. We've agreed to that not because of our legislative obligations, and they're significant. The Public Service Act requires, that's the act that I administer, that does require the public service employments directed towards promoting diverse and skilled workforce during on government and non-government sectors. But beyond that, it's actually, I think you've heard a fair bit about it today, it's actually about workplace culture and values and the way and committing to how we should deliver our services in terms of facing us and looking inwards and doing it for ourselves as well. Now, as you see on the board, the Commission, that's the board, the Directors General, have committed to targets. Now, this wasn't something that came easily to me in terms of advocate for targets. But having been in a government previously where the workforce was much in the Queensland government, back in the 2000s, it was a much more diverse workplace. People identified willingly as having disability, or they identified as being Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Of course, in those days, identifying that you LGBTIQ was just not even considered as something that you would actually see in the workplace. But because I looked at the actual numbers, the PSC people that I work with showed me the numbers and how there had been a significant decline in people who identified as having a disability, those who identified as being Indigenous, those who identified as having having a multicultural background, made me realise perhaps targets might help focus. But when we've had the targets for a year and a half or so, I'm still not sure that targets are the real driver for change. They certainly inform, and we can measure performance, and Directors General have performance agreements, and they have in that they're committed to achieving by 2022 a workforce that is as diverse as the community that we serve. And based on our initial measures, we have a long way to go in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and people with disability. In terms of women, I think the issue there is less obvious now. When the public service is 70% women, you'd kind of think there should be sufficient women good enough to get into the senior leadership team. Well, we still haven't got there. At our SO level, we're hitting at about 56%, so it's still not 68% or 70%. But in our SES, in our our chief executives, we're still at that low 20%. We have some way to go to really crack that barrier. But in terms of that, I think the pipeline is incredibly rich. We are very fortunate, I think, in the Queensland Public Service in that space. Non-English speaking background, equally, we're hitting around 9, almost 10%. I think it's just the nature of the makeup of Queensland. When you see the latest data comes out where 1 in 5 Queenslanders are born overseas, you kind of get a sense of the nature of our community. But this disability in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander is a real nut to crack, I think, if we are to achieve our ambition, not only from a business perspective, but also about trying to represent the community that we serve. As a result, we've done a lot of work as a commission in working with all our chief HR officers across the network around a couple of issues, but the one I'm going to talk about today is Disability Confidence Project. Now, the board committed to, and the leadership in the Inclusion Champions of Change, committed to approach this issue in quite a different way to the way that we've done it in the past. The Commission invited Jessica, who was in State Development, to come and lead the project. Now, Jessica is profoundly deaf, and she led the project, and our intent was to get the stories, and you've heard the richness in the stories here. The power of storytelling is really quite fundamental, I think, to challenging beliefs and cultures. And so they've done Jessica led a lot of work, supported strongly by Alana and the PSC, around getting the stories of people in the public service who themselves have experienced, and they identify as having a disability, but what does that look like? And what are the barriers to them individually being successful? And how could the system change? And I think the panel today has told you some of those sorts of impressions that individuals have about what needs to be different, I guess, if we're going to crack this nut. And of course, then we come down to this whole issue about adopting a social view of disability. Now, when I first heard this, I thought that this sounds like some academic view about how we can intervene here as opposed to physical action. But it's actually important, and you've heard more about it today, and that's appreciating that at the end of it, a social model of disability is not actually a deficit model. It's actually a constructive model, and one is about optimising the potential and value of a person, as an individual. Now, if we think back to the public service values, that's inherent in what we do. We want everybody to optimise their contribution, to be the best they can be, because that's good for Queensland. Why should having a disability be any different? So really it's actually taking a broader cultural approach to developing people in the public service that enables us, our service standards, to be the very best that they can be. And I'm really proud of the Queensland Public Service. You may not know this, but last year we rated 12th nationally as a large organisations over 1,000 as a preferred employer place to work. Qantas and Virgin usually hit the top. They have for the last few years. But that's a major achievement. For terms of a state jurisdiction, there's only one other in the top 20. So that kind of says to me, culturally, people, in terms of community, people want to work for the Queensland Public Service. And we are very proud of the fact that when people are here, they want to stay. But what we've got to crack the nut on is actually making sure that every single public servant works to the best that they can be, and all our structures and support systems, our processes around it, support them to do that. But as the story here today has also said, that's actually about the uniqueness of individuals. Having broad-based strategy isn't a shortcoming in the Queensland Public Service. Go on our website. We've got strategies and policies to burn. And we then measure that. So we have reports and we have tribes of people pushing these reports together to publish them, looking for minuscule movement in some of the data to celebrate the fact we're being successful. That really isn't going to be enough, clearly. At the end of the day, it is how we come to work with our workforce and with our community. It's how we build trust and respect, how we develop a sense of confidence in who we are, and how individuals practice that respect themselves with those they work with to engender a stronger sense of confidence, because through confidence comes growth and I think ultimately success. So in short, I don't think that achieving our diversity targets will ever really be cracked by having a focus on these. These strategies are important and they'll inform what the board does. But for me, the ultimate breakthrough will come in terms of how we engender a culture of respect for one another, respect for the community and the customers that we serve, that we build a strong sense of confidence, that we can in fact do more, we can never be better, and in fact build confidence within the team and with individuals. And at the end of the day, grow trust, that we can in fact break through the barriers that exist there, that keep people back, that create the barriers to community success, that create the barriers to individual being the very best that they can be. So I hope out of today, the stories you've heard from the panellists and our guest speaker have inspired you to think about how you can help and empower others to be the best they can be. And that includes not only in terms of the retention element or the development element, but also as employers, as we turn to the market and kind of say, we have jobs available. So what can we do there to actually make sure that we're allowing people to compete with the market in ways that ensure that they demonstrate their merit and their worth? and that we don't let our bias and our perceptions about what's capable or not get in the way of making the very best decisions. So can I acknowledge the work of Job Access and the incredible work that they do to help organisations like the Public Service go to the next level, to be ever better. And I want to acknowledge each of you for giving up your time, because this is a good test of just the culture of the service, that you're prepared to give of your time on a Monday morning to come and be part of a conversation that really must be had. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. A culture of respect, showing off a strong sense of confidence and growing real and genuine trust. Today has been about many things, and Rob referred to the power of storytelling. It's about looking beyond disability and accessing the potential of a truly inclusive workforce with a variety of skill sets, experiences and backgrounds. And when hiring a person with disability, knowing it's not because it's the right thing to do, but simply because they are the right person for the job. Where the current challenge lies probably is in the connection between employers and workers with disability. In part, it's about learning from each other and recognising the benefits of an inclusive workforce. It's about removing those barriers that prevent people with disability from applying for your jobs and getting through the door for an interview. It's about supporting all employees. And hopefully this morning has shown that addressing these issues can be easier than you might have thought and even free of charge. We encourage you to visit the Job Access website or call a Job Access advisor. Speak with a member of the employer engagement team here today. I'll ask the team just to stand up now so you can see who they are. Yes, okay, they're around waiting for you at the front desk and they're available to chat with you as you leave today. It's worth looking at how you might be able to apply what you've heard today to your own teams and workplaces. And lastly, consider partnering with Job Access, working with a dedicated professional advisor on a disability employment tailored specifically for your organisation. Thank you once again for being our Monday morning breakfast date. An evaluation email will be forwarded in coming days to gauge your feedback. I wish you all the best in your diversity and inclusion efforts and a terrific week ahead. Thank you.